This year, I started reading through the Bible from beginning to end. And if you've ever tried reading the Bible consistently, you know it's very easy to read a lot and still forget most of what you just read. So in this video, I'm going to show you the simple thing I started doing after reading that made books stick in my brain way better than complicated notes or rereading everything. But the crazy part is, what helped me remember more had nothing to do with the common advice of just read slower. It was actually this. For a long time, my entire reading process looked like this. I'd open the book, read the chapter, and then close the book and move on with my day. And at that time, it felt productive because technically I was reading. But then like a few days later, I'd be talking with somebody about what I read and my mind would just go blank. I recognized a few ideas, but I couldn't clearly explain the chapter back in my own words. I realized there's a massive difference between recognizing something and actually knowing it. Your brain remembers what it retrieves, not what it rereads. Think about it like this. Imagine you have a filing cabinet in your brain, and every time you read something, you file the information away in the cabinet. But filing it doesn't guarantee that you're going to find it later. The only way to make the information retrievable is to practice actually retrieving it, because your brain works like a muscle. It gets stronger at whatever you make it do. If all you ever do is put information in, yeah, your brain's going to get good at receiving, but if you practice pulling information out, your brain's going to get good at remembering. Learning scientists call this the testing effect, and it's one of the most replicated findings in learning research. Retrieving information from memory strengthens it far more than rereading does. Not because you're reviewing the ideas, but because the act of struggling to remember them actually rebuilds and reinforces the memory itself. The struggle is the learning. So here's the simple thing I started doing. After I finished reading, I closed the book, and then I opened like a Google Doc. I'll turn on text-to-speech, and then I'll try to recall the main ideas from memory using bullet points. Not perfectly and not word for word, just what happened, what was the main idea and what actually stood out. That's it. Sometimes it only takes about 2 minutes. But forcing my brain to retrieve the information completely changed how I remembered things later on. But what I didn't expect was what started happening the next time I sat down to read. When I first started reading the Bible, everything felt disconnected. There were so many names, stories, places, and events that it all started to blend together. But after consistently doing these quick recall sessions, something started to change. As I kept reading, older stories started coming back in my mind automatically. I'd read something in Kings and then suddenly remember details from Genesis or Samuel without even trying. And for the first time, the Bible stopped feeling like all these random stories and started feeling all connected. Real comprehension isn't remembering details, it's seeing how things connect. Most people think reading comprehension means remembering facts, but facts sitting in isolation are almost useless. Real comprehension is more like building a map. The first time you visit a new city, every street feels random at first, right? But the more you walk around, the more the streets start connecting in your head. Eventually, you just know where you are. Reading works the same way. The more you retrieve old information, the more your brain organizes it into a map instead of like a pile of junk. And once you have a map, new information has somewhere to land. And retrieval helps with this because every time you recall information, your brain strengthens the pathways connected to those ideas. So instead of information sitting isolated in your head, your brain starts organizing it into a larger mental map. That's why recalling old information makes future reading easier too. So while reading, don't obsess over memorizing every detail. Focus on remembering the main event, the core lesson, and the important connection. Because over time, those connections compound naturally. And honestly, that's been way more valuable for me than trying to create perfect notes. But truthfully, the reason this method actually worked for me comes down to something even simpler than the science. One mistake I've made in the past was turning reading into homework. Massive note-taking systems, highlighting everything, and trying to capture every important sentence. But eventually, the system became so exhausting that I stopped using it completely. So this time around, I told myself I'd do something different. I wasn't trying to master the Bible for the first read-through. I just wanted a simple way to retain more from the book. And because this method was so easy, I actually stayed consistent with it. You see, simple systems beat perfect systems. Here's how I think about it now. A reading system has two jobs. One is to help you retain more, and the second is to be simple enough that you actually do it. Most systems, I feel like, are great at number one, and they're terrible at number two. Doing 2-minute retrieval practice is the opposite of most systems, I feel like. It's almost insultingly simple, which is exactly why it works. The best habit isn't the most optimized one. It's the one you're still doing 6 months later. Friction is the enemy of consistency. The more steps a system has, the more opportunities your brain has to talk you out of doing it. But when something takes 2 minutes and has zero setup, the excuse disappears. And consistency is what compounds. 2 minutes every day beats 2 hours once a month. So instead of trying to perfectly study every book that you read, try this. After your reading session, close the book and spend about 2 minutes recalling the main ideas from memory. That's it. No pressure, no complicated templates, and no perfect summaries. Just train your brain to retrieve what you read. Because the goal isn't perfection, the goal is making the information stick a little more every time. Volume doesn't build comprehension, retrieval does. You can read like 50 books a year and retain almost none of it. Or read like 12 books and actually carry the ideas with you for the rest of your life. The difference isn't how fast you read, it's what you do in the 2 minutes after you stop. But there's another subtle mistake that makes reading feel mentally exhausting, even when you want to focus. And most people don't even realize they're doing it. So in this video right here, I'm gonna show you why reading sometimes feels hard on your brain and the small shift that makes it feel dramatically easier. Keep learning, keep growing, keep going. And I'll see you in the next one.